Okay, and in case you missed it, during the break, Jeff Wagenheim actually copped to the fact that he did mock Andrei Arlovski and is very, very apologetic.
It was Luke Thomas.
It was totally Luke. Determined.
It was totally Luke.
I scoured the footage.
I said nothing. I love the pit bull.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of my
on that note, let us answer some questions. Who's up first? What do we have? What do you got? Here we go. Guys, Ronda Rousey hasn't spoken on the record to an MMA journalist since her loss to Holly Holm, yet she has talked about the UFC very briefly to mainstream media. My eyesight is horrible. Mainstream media members like Ellen and Ramona Shelburne. As an MMA journalist, if you could ask her one question, what would it be?
Why don't you talk to us, Ron?
Is that the one?
That's it.
Why don't you talk to us?
Why don't you talk to us?
It's not a bad question, by the way.
Is wrestling
I would
fake?
just like to know if, I don't know what the exact question would be, but there was the sentiment was that she was, and she went with this, she helped sell the image that she was the pioneer of something breaking through, and not just women, but just an attitude and everything else that went into it. So you'd like to know, at some point, in losses and things like that, does she, is a champion somebody who can lose as they win? And basically, and then, does that make sense? Because I thought the way she set herself up, the biggest disappointment in her is the way she set herself up and the way the media set her up was that she was something beyond the pale. She was something of a transcendent star. She went along with it. She sold that. And in losses, she has disappeared. And I felt like that kind of took the sheen off of her accomplishments and the idea of a champion. Because that's where we were dealing with her, sort of the stratosphere of what is a champion in life, like this type of thing. And I felt like that's where it's kind of went away. So I'd just like to know her definition of champion, or what she thinks in those terms.
Isn't that the same question Ellen asked her?
Did she ask her that?
I did not watch that interview. Did you guys
Danny
watch
did.
it?
No, I didn't, but I'm sure they were all softballs.
Did you watch it?
Well, Danny watches all
Did you
of
watch
it. I
it?
did not watch it.
Wow.
I don't even have cable.
No, but it was online.
Oh.
Come on. It was on our site, bro.
I can go to the park and watch soft pitch, slow pitch softball.
I actually find that to be most telling, that none of us were even compelled to watch the interview.
Nah.
I mean, because we've
seen it before, though. I tuned in before when she was on, and it was like, that she's not gonna. There's not gonna be anything that comes of that.
Sure.
I think that's the original question that Jeff brought up. That's a really good question. Like, why didn't you talk to the media? Like, what's your beef? Yeah, what's wrong with
I actually think it's a fair question.
Yeah, it is. 100%.
I know you were saying it somewhat jokingly,
I mean,
but it is
that
fair.
was part of the whole story going into her last fight. She wasn't doing any media. I think another question would be interesting. What's her relationship with Edmund? Like, sort of where's that status at? Because a lot of people, especially towards the end, not when she was winning, but when she was losing, they were criticizing her coach and her coaching staff and how they were approaching everything. And that's still, even her mom came out and said some things about Edmund, and there was still a lot of unresolved issues there.
She said something I did read in the article about the Ellen interview that, she didn't have to make some big announcement that she was retiring from judo. She doesn't feel like she needs to do the same in MMA. It's a little different because, you weren't a professional judoka, right? You weren't getting paid for this. Right. You're in the Olympics, your Olympic run
and you graduated from it, essentially.
Exactly.
It's just inherent. She moved on. Everybody saw that.
So it does feel a little bit incomplete, right? If she would have come out and said, okay, I'm done, it's been a nice run, I think people would feel a little different
She's
about
only
it.
on Ellen. She's only on any platform because of her fighting. As well as judo wasn't going to do that.
Exactly.
Right.
So this was a whole different thing. Her career in the UFC was what made her a transcendent person. This is why Beyonce is quoting her and all this stuff. That's why this happens. For her to just be like, I didn't want you. It's so weird. It's so it's just like she
seems to have this resentment towards MMA, which is a little bit bizarre. I can understand it because it didn't end well, but MMA did nothing bad to her, right?
It almost seems like I feel like she's sheltered herself from even hearing the broader sphere of what people upset.
There was a lot of negativity online, but there's negativity for everybody. But I think that if she's
more than any top star who loses, right?
But I think that different people, just like different people have different abilities as fighters, there are different people who have different levels of resilience when it comes to seeing their name online, especially when you have been, this superstar, this person who was just unbeatable, and all of a sudden you lose and you're getting piled on a bunch.
You can pick from any list of precepts or aphorisms or whatever. They're just like, hey, if you want to see, somebody's true character, show the adversity. Like, how do they handle themselves in adversity? And I feel like that's always the issue with her, right? Like, if she had just lost more gracefully, I'm not saying she had to accept it and be all rosy about it, but the bottom line is, if she had been the strong person that she had been going into that fight, coming out of it and said, I'll get right back, it would have been so different.
Or
it would have been so different.
And not to beat a dead horse, but the worst thing to happen to Ronda was Conor losing, because we saw the way he handled it.
He's drinking whiskey in the end.
Yeah, and so like we were able to juxtapose the two reactions.
Yeah, and that was, I mean,
it just,
as you know, we talked about this a lot.
Yeah.
That was kind of one of the moments that cemented.
And it was like 3 months later.
For me, that he lost the fight and was immediately thinking about, yeah, this guy was the better guy tonight.
I wish he had, because honestly, even going into the WWE, and I know that this is like this fixed universe and there's going to be a very specific kind of niche audience and all this, but I still feel like her star would have been so much bigger going into this if she had just done anything to help that cause. But right now, I feel like there's just this dark cloud over her.
Yeah.
And I don't know when she gets rid of it. I don't know if she can do that in the WWE. I guess we'll see.
She'll never be my fabulous Moolah. Never.
Any chance you can get, you mentioned
WrestleMania is coming up. You're on the record saying that you will be watching, right?
WrestleMania?
Yeah, watching. He'll be in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I will not be there, but I'll read stuff online about it, probably.
enough.
I'm not
Mark
gonna-
Ramondi's going.
Mark Ramondi will be there covering it. Okay, let's move along now and read this one. Since two bigger names have signed to the PFL, I'm assuming this week he means, I'm wondering how the pay structure works. Is it a complete gamble for the million, or is there show money? So just this week alone, we found out that Rick Story has signed with the PFL and Chris Wade has signed with the PFL. Now, just to answer this question, I'm going to ask a follow-up about PFL. It's like when they fight, they get paid. Like you have a contract, you have a showman, you have all that stuff, but then you can win the million if you win the whole damn thing. Details still seem a little bit murky, and you expect them to kind of roll out and tell us who's in these tournaments and explain the structure a little more. But what do you guys think about what the PFL is slowly but surely doing? So the season is starting in June. They're signing these guys, some recognizable names, Rick Story, Chris Wade. Are you guys,
Brooks, right?
Will Brooks, right, of course, recently. Are you bullish on what the PFL is doing, or are you a little bit hesitant?
I like the idea that there's a chance to win $1 million, because that can change the life of a Chris Wade, of of a Will Brooks, guys that are skilled and that.
Or me.
Of course, yeah. But my problem with it is when you got $1 million at the end of the line and you have a tournament, what's the best way to get through a tournament? Not take any damage. You're going to see a lot of guys wrestle, a lot of guys stall, a lot of guys look for.
And they're actually signing a lot of those guys, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
So it sort of plays out and sets
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is, and that's why I'm sort of like at this point, because I would just be negative. I mean, like a lot of us, I'd just be negative about it. But there's really no point being negative. You should just, it's at this point, you just kind of watch to see how it plays out and see if it was a good model or not. But my inclination is to be like what you just said, that it seems like it's a recipe for disaster.
I will say this, though. I think it's amazing for the sport to have a PFL, to have a third option, right? Because it seemed like, we talk about free agency, there's only really two avenues. And if you're an ex-UFC fighter, you have one avenue, and if Bellator's not interested, you're stuck, right? So to have this third option now, like Will Brooks was not going back to Bellator. He burnt that bridge. Now he has PFL, great. Chris Wade burnt the bridge with UFC, whether it was his fault or not, that is irrelevant at this point. He has the PFL option. So I love this. I love the fact.
Same here for that reason.
But I'm just worried, as you mentioned, that we're going to see a lot of guys, as they should. Like the smart strategy is not to have these barn burners. You need to be healthy because of that pot at the end of the rainbow. So that worries me. And we've seen this before. We've seen the season structure. It doesn't pan out the tournament. We just talked about Huerta and Alvarez not panning out the way they wanted it to. So I'm skeptical. But I want to believe in it. I want them to succeed for the sport, for the health of the sport, so that fighters have another avenue.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how it plays out. I mean, really, the devil's in the details. How much are the fighters going to be earning just as a fight purse? And is it going to be something where the fight purse is reduced so much that you have to just rely on that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Or, are you going to be able to sustain yourself on this and just keep winning and winning and winning to the point where you get a shot?
I'm always skeptical when basically the star of the show is the $1 million, right? That's really the star of the show. So you're like, does that really translate in this day and age? I don't know. Because we've used these structures before and we've seen diminishing returns. So I don't know, the $1 million, yes, because they're brushing off some of these guys who had no place to go, there's some allure to that, but I don't know how long that will sustain.
What a great point that is, right? Because we're used to, as sports fans, and they're trying to cater to sports fans here, I mean, we're watching guys who are making $20 million a year.
Exactly. That's
so, like, the hook of $1 million might be cool for MMA fighters and fans.
1 million.
Yeah, it's really not that crazy, right?
It's a little dark.
Like, these guys are making $1 million for winning the All-Star game.
Watch
you know
them
what I
go through
mean?
hell to get $1 million. It's like,
Yeah, just get your brains bashed in 7 times, and then we'll give you what Kevin Durant makes in 1 game. All right, let's move along to our next question here. I feel like the UFC is missing annual ceremonial events, no Super Bowl or SummerSlam, that can pull in a wider casual audience with a bit of pageantry. Why not? What are the barriers and limitations for the UFC? What could an event like this look like? So this man wants, like these sort of tentpole events, if you will. Can I just say what my initial reaction is to this idea, which I hear about a lot? That idea right there is the fundamental issue with the UFC right now. It's not, hey, let's take a fight that's been brewing for a while and put it in the best place possible. It's, let's do, we have to have a July 4th card because that's what we do, and then we're stuck with 213 where there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, the UFC needs to be going away from that model, it's not pro wrestling. Like, they can't script it. They need to say, like, okay, we've got Darren Till, let's take him to Liverpool. That's the best place for him. And I feel like they're actually moving away from the old line of thinking and moving away to trying to put guys, CM Punk, Chicago, Darren Till, Liverpool, right?
These are things. You've been harping about for years.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a horrible idea, in my opinion. Yes. I actually feel like they need to go back to the old.
It would leave like a huge crater in the count. If they were just to stack one card in the terms of what they're talking about,
that too.
6 months around it would be garbage.
Sure.
And and this is a sport with no off season. You're filling a calendar year with fights. So it can't happen. You're never going to have that kind of. You're never going to have 50 stars. You're never going to have enough stars to pull this off. And honestly, I kind of agree with you 100%. I'd rather have. If they're going to have that many fight cards, I'd rather see some kind of allure to each card rather than just having a bunch of, like Bellator events, and I don't mean to put them, but like some Bellator events come and go, I have no idea what's going on with them. There's nothing happening that you want to, that you pay attention to. I don't want that to happen in the UFC. You'd always rather have somebody at the top or some kind of compelling stories or several of them. I wouldn't want to see them try to do this, and I honestly don't think they could, really. Honestly, sustainably, I don't think that they could.
They have a specific date where they just
cram like 5
they kind of do that with New York when they come to New York usually. Yeah. They've done it twice in November, right?
But look at the first New York card. It like blew up everything around it. It was, you know what I mean? Everything suffered around it.
There's a lot of credit for the way they're booking things these days. You look at 221 with Perth. It didn't work out, but it was supposed to be Robert Whittaker. 222 was going to be Max Holloway in the quote-unquote 9th island. 223, Khabib fighting in Brooklyn. 224, Nunes fighting against Raquel Pennington. This is what they need to be doing. 225, the CM Punk fight.
They're bringing
back in the day
to 224.
Yes. Yes, that's the old way. That's like when we had the Memorial Day card with July 4th. Right. I feel like they need to they need to move away from that. And actually look how many issues they bring upon themselves when they try to book those specific like earmark cards. Right. Yeah. It's always like a mad scramble.
I think they could do that like once a year again. Like if we come to New York, when they come to New York is a stacked
but sometimes
card,
it doesn't. The stars don't align, so it's better to take the actual stars and bring them when you have them aligned initially. Yeah. All right, let's move along and see what else we got. Okay, here we go. Better path to a title: Luke Rockhold at 205 or Frankie Edgar at 135. I thought this was a fascinating question.
That is a really good
what do you think?
Man, I would. Well, let's.
Okay,
if Rockhold fights, if he fights Gustafsson, he's right there, right?
Yeah. Right.
But you would think that Frankie would get a top-ranked guy if he went down.
There's a bunch
coming off knockout losses.
Let's not forget, Daniel Cormier is the champion at 205. So
let's assume that Cormier is retiring in March as he claims he is.
I would say Frank Edgar's more likely to, I think, succeed at 135 than Rockhold is to succeed at 205,
really?
I think.
Which weight class do you guys think is better right now?
But I think the best weight class is 135, so it's the hardest weight class to get a shot.
135 is.
I think that's a factor, but it's also a factor that Frankie at 135, now he's fighting guys who are faster, but he's clearly going to be either the strongest or one of the strongest guys in that weight class instantly because he's fighting smaller guys. Rockhold, what is his big advantage at middleweight? Well, he's got size, length, reach. He goes in there against these 205ers, and a lot of his advantages go away. So yeah, you have to weigh the which weight class is better, but you also have to weigh what things you lose when you either go up those 15 pounds or you go down.
But if the question is what path is shorter, definitely 205. I mean, 205
has to be, right?
You beat Gustafsson and
shorter but harder in a weird way because if he goes up there, Gustafsson, Gustafsson, I would favor in that fight. I would.
Yeah. I wonder what the odds would be. But yeah, I mean.
But it'd be a good fight. But I feel like if Frankie went and fought a contender, probably fascinating though. I'd be more fascinated to see Frankie go down.
Who's the equivalent at 135 to Gustafsson at 205? Cody Garbrandt, former champion, still in his prime, right?
Yeah.
Or so Rockhold, Gustafsson, Frankie, Dominic Cruz. Yeah. Man. It's a tough one.
But none of
those guys are more accomplished in some ways.
Too.
None of that stuff has, Frankie hasn't even said he's would go down to 135.
No, but his coach is
talking about it, but his coach even acknowledged that Frankie probably may not warm to the idea.
No.
So there's that.
He didn't want to go to
there's not even been like even a talk about a fight down there. Whereas Rockhold at least has said, I'm going to go up to 205, and he's already been chirping away with Gustafsson. So in the spirit of the question, I have to say that the clear path would be Rockhold because there's at least a path there. There's nothing. Fair. There's no path in the snow.
You're being a stickler. We're assuming that they're both going down, but fair enough.
I'm just doing that.
You're being a realist.
Yeah, of course.
The devil's in the details, as you said. All right, but I love that question. That's a fun one.
That's a good one.
I would like to see both of them in those respective weight classes.
I would love to see Frank Edgar at 135.
I wouldn't mind seeing Frankie at 205.
Guys, with the lack of buzz for UFC 223 from fans and media, are we all just collectively waiting for two guys to make weight? #touchwood. And I found this one interesting because I've been hearing this a little bit over the past week. Like people are like, "Where's the buzz for 223?" I feel like there is buzz for 223. I think they put out a nice commercial. They actually like produced something. They got them together, and I think it was in LA. I get people asking me. In fact, a UPS driver came to my house yesterday. I opened the door to pick up a package, and the first thing he asked me is, "Who's going to win, Khabib or Tony?" Which is a little bit unnerving. But anyway, I actually feel like there is buzz. Are you not feeling it?
I feel like there's certainly some, but again, I think that those of us who work in this industry or even the viewers for this show who are clearly going to be much bigger MMA fans than the casual folks, we might have a little bit of a warped perspective. However, after Saturday's fight card, there's clear sailing to 223,
which I love, right?
And so that's
a break.
That gives an opportunity for this to really get churning. And because look at how many weekends have we had without fight cards going back? We had like maybe one. The last several.
Oh, this past weekend was the first in 2 months.
Yeah, so we had 1 week off.
Benefited so much by being on this weekend.
Great point. Yeah. Great point. All eyes were on him. Yeah. No, that's a great point. They're gonna have 3 weeks to promote this fight with nothing in between.
I think there's plenty of buzz. I don't know. I've a few friends that are not huge MMA fans have already talked to me about this card.
You live in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have several friends that are huge fans of Rose Namajunas. I think she really transcended into a star. Maybe not mega star, but she's on her way. I think there's plenty of buzz, and as we get closer to fight week, things will pick up. We saw UFC 214, where it was John Jones, Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
It felt like not much buzz, and then that fight week, it picked up incredibly.
I do feel like the Touchwood hashtag there makes sense to me because I'm like, we've seen this try to happen so many times, and we've seen it fall out, and I do feel like there is a little bit of like, if it's a hypothetical still, and I feel like as soon as it catches momentum and it starts to get real as it's going to, I feel like it'll have a lot of buzz at the end.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I want to get to fight week. I want to see these guys at the weigh-ins. I want to see them make weight. Then I'm going to get really excited. Yes. I do feel like I'm not allowing myself to get excited
That's
about
it. That's how I feel, too.
I think it's a big deal. I mean, in the beginning of the show, you introduced me as being from ESPN. I work in a whole different operation, not in MMA over there, but because this is a big deal, this fight card 223, the MMA folks have borrowed me for the next few weeks to fill in and help out, and they wouldn't do that if this was just a pedestrian, any other weekend fight card. This is a big deal, and so that's the whole reason why I'm temporarily over there, because they're preparing for something that's pretty huge, and I think it's going to be a lot of hype by the time the night comes.
Man, if that card stays intact with those 2 title fights, Quinta Felder, the return of the Beat.
I truly believe Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Moreno.
I believe he's going to. This is his fight.
Who?
It's in Brooklyn. Khabib Nurmagomedov. This is his chance to to transcend. We waited because every time he gets in there, I said it because we have these long waits in between. Him coming off of his last fight against Barboza, and then if he does anything similar to that. His talk in between. I feel like this is his moment. Like he's undeniable.
This is his chance to be like a Triple G like figure in our sport, right? Because he talks to smack. He's got the cult-like following.
He's
undefeated.
compelling, man.
Yeah,
I mean, and I feel like this is the fight that people have been waiting to see. So it'll all come. I think that once we get close to that idea will blossom. I think we'll all be excited about that fight as long as it happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Okay, here we go. Next one up. Is Mayweather really training with Woodley? With whom would you match him?
I'll see you guys.
Oh, my.
Oh, man. I don't know if he, I mean, if he is.
Can I say, I asked Tyron Woodley if this is true, and he said it was. And then I asked him, when are you training? And he was very coy about everything. So I don't know if this is...
3 a.m. probably, right?
I don't know if this is, him trying to pump his TMZ thing or whatever, but he did tell me that it was. So, take that for what it is. And apparently Floyd was saying something yesterday about his wrestling. I don't know.
We were at a club one night.
No, but he actually did something himself. Yeah.
We were at a club one night about 3 or 4 a.m.
Yes,
hanging
you
out.
and I. Yes, that's right.
And,
that's right. What
he
a time
comes
that
in,
was.
and I just don't buy any of this stuff ultimately, because that's his lifestyle. The dude has all this money. I saw he was at the Laker-Nuggets game the other night, sitting courtside. I just think his lifestyle, if he's not doing it seriously. And besides that, he's 40 years old. He's not, even if he's doing it for a year, like he's trying to train. So
this is the part I can't wrap my head around. Floyd Mayweather is arguably the greatest boxer of all time, right? Like, you can make that argument. Certainly has the record 50-0, right? He's 40. He makes around like $300 million when he fights. Why on God's green earth would you go to another sport where you're not the best, where it would be very hard for you to make that much money, right? And you would kind of risk, getting beat up and things like where's the upside here? That's the part I don't get. Does he need, if he comes out like Michael Jordan did and said, look, I lost the passion for boxing. I want a new challenge. I've always wanted to do this. I've always admired. Okay, cool. More power to you. Like, you only live one life. Take your best shot. But I just don't see that being a motivation here. I have no doubt that the UFC would welcome him with open arms. I have no doubt that they've talked about it. I have no doubt that there's interest on the UFC side. I just can't really wrap my head around the motives on his side, other than, of course, just this free publicity.
Especially at the wrestling. Come on, that's the worst kind of training and everything. I was like, this dude's not doing that.
Let me ask you a question. What if the UFC made a deal with Floyd Mayweather and said, look, we're going to bring you in, but it's going to be no takedowns. But there'll be kicks, and it'll be with, like the 4-ounce gloves, but no takedowns. Would that be a massive, would that be a black eye on the sport?
Well, it wouldn't be. It would be,
It'd be the slight
MMA would be like small M, big M, big A. I mean, it'd be a little bit of a mixture. And depending on who, imagine if he got in there with somebody like like of the caliber of a Wonder Boy or a Darren Till or
MMA.
I'm talking about like somebody whose specialty is kicks.
They're not doing that.
Of course, it would give him. It would give him like a better chance than if he goes in there with a wrestler, but it would still be silly, and it just isn't. It's not MMA. I mean, to me, if you want to compete in MMA, compete in MMA, compete in this sport, and I do think that to answer your question, there is a motivation of elite athletes who have known their entire life how good they are and who have relied on that to want to conquer a whole different sport. However, that's never been Floyd Mayweather's motivation.
Right.
For him, it's always been about money, and it's been about low risk. He waited until all of his opponents, till all these guys were a little past their prime. Manny Pacquiao, not when he was in his prime, when he was barely Manny. Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, all these guys were past their prime by the time Floyd got in the ring with him. Yes, he won every one of his fights, and he deserved, or before his prime, like Canelo. He won all his fights, and he deserves all those accolades. He's nowhere near the best fighter that ever lived, best boxer ever lived.
I'm saying you can argue.
You could, but you'd be wrong if you did argue. It would be a ridiculous argument. But he certainly is a great boxer, and could be probably the best of his era. However, he's always been a low risk guy, and this would be a much bigger risk than he's ever faced.
Okay.
For less reward.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're going to pay him $300, which seems a little bit
maybe
far
$300.
Okay. Do you think UFC regrets hiring USADA, and do you think that they will have them around for long term? Do you think that the current ownership says, man, Lorenzo, why did you have to do this? Why'd you have to give us these problems?
The whole legitimacy factor and setting it up for a sale and adding all these elements. I mean, it's hard to answer this question, honestly, because you felt like you understood on some level why they needed to, And Lorenzo, being a very smart person, understood why they needed to do it. And I have no idea. I mean, honestly, I have no idea. It's one of those things you see that we talked about this when they brought him in when it started. At some point, it'd have to. He said himself, it'd have to get worse before to get better.
Yeah.
All that type of thing. Well, we've seen worse. I mean, it's going through the worst in many different factors, and it coincides too with like a lot of fallouts in other ways, weight cutting issues and everything else. It glares though when you get these guys, and we were talking about Cynthia Calvillo a little bit ago. Just the different things that are going on, the procedures in terms of announcing it before, kind of making it public before going through all this stuff. There's so many factors of worse that we're already going through, and so I still feel like you have to see where's the better before we, you know what I mean? Is it, in another couple of years, where are we at? And then I would be like, it'd be easier to answer like how long, if it goes on forever, or how this will work.
Yeah. I'd go out on a limb and say that if Lorenzo Fertitta did not have aspirations to sell the company within the next 10 years, there's no way he's signing this deal. There's no way in hell he's signing this deal.
I agree with
Why? This is self-inflicting wounds constantly, right?
Yeah.
Shooting yourself in the foot.
Yes. Look, they could say all they want that the media brought this upon it. Like we were just asking questions. And look, they're hardly even accessible at this point. So they don't have to face this music if they don't want to. No one was banging on their door. John McCain, Congress wasn't telling them to do this. Dana White wasn't sitting there in front of Congress like, Rafael Palmeiro and these guys. They did it, as you said, to gather all these little nuts, like the Reebok deal, like the USADA deal, the prospects of a massive TV deal coming up, and say, look at this shiny new toy that we have. You know what I'm saying? So I have no doubt in my mind, even though he has never addressed it because he's never talked to anyone post-sale, that if he's not selling the company, he's not doing this deal.
Yeah, and I think that's. I think there's a lot of reasons why the USADA era has I think brought about more negatives than positives. And I wouldn't have said that when it first came about. I was all in favor, and I was applauding the UFC for doing it. But I just think USADA has gone about its business in ways that are not fair, really, to the fighters. Not so much, to the promotion. The promotion signed the deal, and they're getting what they signed up for. But the fighters didn't sign up for this.
Exactly, and
that brings up a good point. Like
association stuff,
I would
right?
say they do regret it because not only, has it created a bunch of issues with matchmaking and having fighters available, but it also has created upheaval with the fighters, because they didn't sign up for it. So now you add the Reebok deal, you add the USADA stuff. There's a lot. It's a package for them to come out and start trying to unionize. Although those efforts haven't come out so great, but there's still a lot going on there. So I would say yes, but I also agree with Chuck in the sense that that's an answer that will have a good answer to it down the road 2 years. Maybe it turns around and it's a positive thing.
Just got to give more of those Brock Lesnar
exemptions. Okay, just 2 questions left. Here we go. Are any of you excited to watch the continuation of the Karate Kid series on YouTube called Cobra Kai?
Oh my God, yes.
Is that a YouTube series?
I had no idea.
Exclusively on YouTube?
I didn't even watch the one with Will Smith's kid.
That was the next Karate Kid. That didn't.
I've just seen
Kai,
You saw the old ones, right?
Yeah, I've seen the old ones.
What about you, Jeff?
I have no idea what this stuff. I had never.
Never saw the Karate Kid?
Oh yeah, so the movie The Karate Kid,
yeah.
but this.
Cobra Kai, you didn't see the trailer
I
for it?
did not see it. No.
Johnny, Dutch.
Yeah, he's back. They're all back.
Oh, okay, they're all back for real?
Is it
But they're
real
old guys now.
They're old? They're really those
They're all
guys?
fighting each other. It's like kids now, but they're like the masters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whoa, I did not know of
It's
anything
kind of like
about
Fuller
this.
House as opposed to Full House. Is that
Yeah,
basically
100%.
it's like it's
the
another
new
version of that?
Roseanne.
Yeah.
Right. There's a new
Where Dan
generation.
comes back from the dead.
How can you not like it in one way? Because you ever go to a UFC event, one thing you're guaranteed to hear is, get him a body bag or sweep the leg. You'll hear those things yes.
That's something you hear in jiu-jitsu.
It's like, it's ingrained
But you
in our
guys
fight
haven't,
culture.
you're not like,
I didn't know anything about it.
Okay, well, there you go. I thought you were big Karate Kid guys. No?
I mean, I liked the movie when it came out, but I don't feel like I need to see a new version of it.
But this is Cobra Kai, so it's a whole other.
I still feel like Dutch won on the score. There's a little bit of controversy back there,
Yeah.
the
I agree.
tournament.
I agree. I totally agree. Maybe they'll address it. Maybe they will. Okay, last but not least, here we go. With Ariel's newfound love of gaming and streaming, which is a bit of a stretch, I do not have a newfound love, but I guess I have an appreciation for it. Is there anything the panel would have, recently discovered that they thought they disliked, but ended up loving?
I will, and I'll keep the video game trend going. Fortnite came out, and
Everyone's talking about this Fortnite.
Fortnite came out, and I'm
it?
into shooting games, but mostly like Call of Duty and more like realistic games. Fortnite is very cartoonish. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it. It's like
Well, I saw Drake playing it last night. Did you see this?
Lil Yachty was playing it.
Freaking
like everyone.
huge.
Yeah.
But what is Fortnite? It's a game
Fortnite
on online?
It's a game that's free that you can get on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation 4.
It's free?
It's free. Well, the full version you have to pay for it. I think it's like $30, but everybody just plays the free one, which is still
What's the point? How do they make money?
Well, they have the full version if you want to play it, so they sell that, and they also sell like, this is so nerdy. They also sell like, you can customize your character and get them new skins.
You play?
Yeah, I play a little bit.
Don't be ashamed.
Yeah, but I
proud.
haven't bought anything.
Okay.
Every time I walk into my
you can customize your character.
Every time I walk into my 15-year-old's room, he's sitting playing this game. So I did not realize. Yes, Fortnite, and it's been like for the last fortnight or so, last 2 weeks or so, he has actually, it seems like constantly. And
you're okay with this?
Well, I'm not, that's a whole other discussion. I mean, I always tell him, set a timer for a half hour on his phone, and when that's done, get out of there. So he,
half hour.
But whatever, I'm a little strict. Anyway, so I'm aware of that thing. But my answer to this question actually would also relate to my son, because he's really into hip hop, and this is a music that I certainly would appreciate, but would know nothing about. I mean, it's certainly music that's newer than a lot of the stuff that I would normally listen to. But because my son
series, Jeff listened to hip hop.
What a revelation!
Because my son is like really into it. He's like playing every time we're in the car together, he takes over and
what's he playing?
Lil Pump.
Drake.
God. He listens to Drake. He listens to he just had me buy tickets today for some show.
NWA?
Somebody named Logic.
Okay.
You know a guy named Logic?
Yeah.
All right, so he likes that guy. He likes a guy named NF, who's
I'm familiar with NF.
who's like also a hip hop dude. A variety of these guys. So it's kind of
cuss words or no cuss words?
Well, I mean, you cut down your consumption of hip hop by like 98% if you don't allow cuss words.
Maybe you only allow him to listen to the non-explicit version.
I did that back when he was listening to Macklemore. I made him like get the clean version, and the clean version was ridiculous.
So bad, yeah.
So no.
Okay, so you're now a hip hop fan.
So I at least now I can go somewhere and listen to the music and like know, oh yeah, that's so and so, that's so and so. I mean,
that's
I'm not.
Great.
Yeah, that's okay.
What a great question.
So,
Chuck?
I tried to watch The Wire back when it first came out, like when it was first going, and I just could never get into it. And then recently I started watching it, and I loved it. Like it was like all the writing is so sharp, and there's so many involved things going on there. So I would say that's the only thing that comes to mind. But I've discovered The Wire 15 years after it's.
And you originally watched it?
No, I tried to watch it. There's been at least once or twice where I've watched the first episode. I rewatched the first episode and I was like, I just couldn't get into it. I think we went a little further. I just could never get into it. And then just like last month or 2 months
How far
ago,
into it are you now?
Now I've already watched all the way to season 3 or 4.
Wow. You rediscovered The Wire. Never seen an episode.
So it's like I've really just truly now discovered it.
Yeah.
Now I get why people
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen an episode. Never seen an episode of The Wire or The Sopranos.
And I've never seen that either. And same thing.
I should
Never
see
saw
it.
The Sopranos?
Never saw The Sopranos.
Yeah, same here.
That's amazing stuff.
I should watch it.
One of the best.
Never even seen Breaking Bad.
Do you guys like do your kids watch these kids playing video games?
No, you mean like on like Twitch and stuff?
Yeah, YouTube.
I don't think that
my son's starting to do this.
I don't think my son has been doing that. No.
This YouTube, man, it's like
what
is this?
The stuff they find on YouTube is insane.
Yeah.
And it has like 80 million views.
Yeah.
I love when they go ahead.
When my son was like 2, he would watch this person opening up, Kinder.
That's what I was just going to point out.
Yes.
The unboxing.
Oh my God.
That's what I see. Like they're watching just them open toys.
It's unbelievable. But now he's evolved into
soft.
watching Super Mario Brothers. Someone playing Super Mario Brothers. I'm like, what is this? This is horrible.
There's only.
It can be entertaining, especially if you know the
Nothing entertaining about it.
Streaming.
I'd rather play it myself.
We complained about, you're playing too many video games, and now we've taken a whole other layer of watching somebody else play video games.
Horrible. Anyway,
it's like watching somebody else, buy a ticket to go to a ball game.
Yeah, and then watching it. But I think today's show was a success because we learned that Jeff Wagenheim is a hip hop fan.
Yeah. I'm going to the show. I'm taking.
Which one?
This Logic is doing this.
Where is it?
The show. It's up in near Hartford, around Hartford, and I'm going to go. I'm actually taking both even my 12-year-old daughter once ago. So I'm going to embarrass the hell out of them. The last thing they want to do is be sitting next to me at this.
Show up with a chain.
Yeah. He's already got the shirt.
Flavor Flav. I got my. I'm going to go with the.
Okay, we are out of time. Great stuff, guys. Appreciate you stopping by. And of course, thank you to all of you for watching another episode of The Beat. We are back next week, same time and place, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we shall say goodbye. And of course, UFC is back. They're back in London this week, so enjoy that as well. For the rest of the crew, for Jeff, Danny, Chuck, I am Ariel. Again, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy the fights.